episode 3 of the WISER virtual book tour. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Wendy Mayhew, author of WISER, the Definitive Guide to Starting a Business After the Age of 50. Why do a virtual book tour? I don't want to make the virtual book tour about COVID-19 other than to say that it has and continues to impact employment. It is fair to say that many older employees are being asked to take early retirement or have or will be losing their jobs. A large number of these people are not ready to retire, and many over the years have probably thought of opening their own business and now will do it, while others probably may have to look at entrepreneurship as a way to survive. What both these groups have in common is that they need to know what is needed when starting a business. And so I'm a firm believer that there isn't any one person that knows enough about starting a business to write a book on their own. So what I did was I asked people that I knew who were known for their expertise to contribute to the book. And because of what is going on in the world, and I wasn't able to do a book launch as such, I decided to do these virtual book tours and ask these contributors to be part of the book. I also wanted to have a moderator, and so I reached out to my friend Paul Tasner, who at the age of 64 lost his job and started a new business at the age of 66. And Paul is known extremely well around the world. He has done a TED Talk that has over 20 has been translated into 29 different languages and has over 2 million views. And he's been through everything that we're talking about here, so there isn't a better person to have as a moderator. So I welcome Paul first, and then Paul will be introducing each of you and ask you questions. The only thing that I do ask for any of the attendees is that if you do have any questions, put them in the chat box, and either any of us on the panel or that is involved here will be answering those questions at the end of the call. So Paul, before I hand everything over to you and ask you to do the introductions, and we brought this up last time, I'm going to bring it up again. So you lost your job at 64. You started your business at 66. What were you doing for 2 years, and what is your new business about?
I'm really tempted to make up something to cover those 2 years, just to see if everybody's awake. But I was just, just kind of floundering career-wise. I mean, I certainly wasn't engaged in employment for anyone. I was doing consulting and something I'd done earlier in my career, but I wasn't too crazy about it. But I don't mind saying that I needed the income. I couldn't afford not to have some kind of revenue coming in. So for that, I'm grateful that I was able to fall back on a consulting opportunity. But I was 64 years old, and I was engaged in, bringing in some much needed revenue. But I just didn't want this to be the last thing I did before I shuffled off the planet. I mean, not to sound too macabre about it. And I really wanted to start something special, for my final act, so to speak. It took about 2 years to come around to it. A lot of people, I think panelists and participants will probably all acknowledge that a lot of people think, there was a minute in a day when you got that spark of an idea for your entrepreneurial venture, and then you were off and running with it. And I found that that's not true at all, that it's really much more of at least for me and for others that I've spoken to, it's more of an organic process, and you're thinking on it and mulling it over, and you're talking to people, and this sounds good, but not quite. And eventually it starts to take shape, and then boom, you've got something finally out of all that confusion that seems to work. And that's how it was for me. And that process took a couple of years, but I was absolutely convinced that it was the right way to go when I did land on it. I didn't have a moment's hesitation once I settled on something. So as you said, in many ways, you know, I'm well suited to, well, I'm well suited not to be on your panel because the folks on the panel are incredibly accomplished in their fields of marketing and branding, et cetera. But I'm well suited to be a participant, you know, a listener. And I'm flattered that you asked me to be a moderator. And I also would have benefited quite a bit from an event like this, or from your book particularly, when I was starting out. Not that it was ages ago, it was only 9 years ago, but I didn't feel like there were that many resources, or if there were, I didn't know where to look for them. And I didn't know who to look for or where to look. But fortunately, I was engaged in a venture that I you know, I had experience in what I was doing. I knew what I was doing, and that took all of my time putting the business together. I'm thrilled that you've done this, Wendy, and you're just about 9 years too late, though. But,
well, hopefully I can help a whole bunch of other people.
well, if we talk fast, maybe we can make up some time.
Okay.
And particularly this evening, because it is all about marketing and branding, you know, as shared with us by people that are expert in these fields. And I don't know, I'd love the panelists to comment on this at some point in the evening. It doesn't have to be right now, but I feel like this is an area where entrepreneurs, they don't really have the stuff to accomplish marketing and branding in a way that it deserves. You know, many entrepreneurs have a technical background. They know how to build the product that they're selling. But to be an expert marketer and branding person is not something I found that entrepreneurs embody. They have to go look for it, if they're even savvy enough to know that they have to go look for it. I see you shaking your head, Hunter. I mean, a lot of people think, "Oh, marketing, I can do that. Yeah, I can. Yeah. You know, I can market money."
I'm agreeing with you absolutely, violently.
I'm quick to admit that I don't know anything about it. I've always been a dreadful salesperson, and when you're an entrepreneur, you better get better at sales, because you're not going to have any revenue if you don't have any sales. So this is where people beginning a new venture really need advice and support. So sorry to be long-winded about that.
That was great. That was great.
My favorite thing to say is, if you build it, they will not come. There's something you have to do before they do come.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
That's a lovely way of putting it, Tara. Absolutely.
Very good. Maybe this is a good time just to give the audience a little snippet about the backgrounds of our distinguished panel. I'll begin with Stephen. He was the first one to sign up. Stephen McGill is am I coming across clearly? Is the sound good?
Yep. Fine. Perfectly.
Stephen McGill is the president and creative director of McGill Buckley, an award-winning branding agency in Ottawa. McGill Buckley provides clients with senior-level strategic, think, and attention-getting creativity. Labeled by some as the branding guy, he's a passionate believer in the power of brands to transform companies and organizations. An award-winning creative director and writer, Stephen's won over 200 awards for creativity in Canada and internationally. Stephen's long been involved in the nonprofit sector, having advised and worked with groups such as the Queensway Carleton Hospital Foundation, Youth Services Bureau, University of Ottawa Heart Institute Foundation, Support Our Troops, Briere Foundation, St. John Ambulance Canada, Care Canada, and Salvation Army. Stephen has spoken at numerous conferences throughout Canada. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also had a university named after him, but he's too long.
That's what I tell people.
And next, welcome to Hunter Leonard, all the way from Australia. Hunter is a multi-award-winning marketer who's helped over 500 clients achieve more than $2 billion in revenue growth over the last 20 years. He's written 7 best-selling books and surveyed more than 10,000 business owners. He enjoys sharing tips, resources, and advice with business owners on marketing and business ownership skills, and has delivered more than 650 seminars and workshops. Hunter founded Silver and Wise in 2016 with the aim of combating ageism and discrimination in Australia. So welcome, Hunter. Amazing. And Tara Hunt, CEO of agency Truly and startup Flywheel. Is that, yeah, Flywheel.
That's right. Yeah.
With a very cool spelling. Has engaged business audiences of over 345,000 followers. She also walks the walk with over 20 years of experience in market research and strategy on both client and agency side, working with brands such as P&G, L'Oreal, Nokia, Facebook, Intuit, Realtor.ca, and even Justin Trudeau. She's an internationally published author, was named one of 2013's Entrepreneurial Women to Watch by Entrepreneur Magazine, and one of the most influential women in technology in Fast Company. As a woman in marketing and technology, Tara knows all too well that biases are enormous impediments to those who don't fit the cisgendered, straight, able-bodied white male profile. She's passionate about using her own privilege and large audience to raise the voices of others, including Black, Indigenous, immigrant, LGBTQ+, and differently abled professionals. As Angela Davis says, we must always attempt to lift as we climb. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, the Flywheel spelling is like super fly of an age.
So pretty amazing backgrounds, everybody. It's really fantastic. We've got like a few warm-up questions, so to speak. Wendy and I spoke about, but I just wanted to go back to my comments during the introduction about that marketing and branding are just so essential to getting a new venture off the ground, whether it's a service or a product. And in my experience, most entrepreneurs are really lacking in these skills. And I guess my question to the group is that a fair assumption, or is it just me who's lacking in those skills?
Very fair.
Anyone can take it, please.
I'll jump in. I think.
Sure.
I think you're right. I think anybody can acquire the skills that sort of are needed for marketing, but I think it's more than skills in my view. I think people have a misunderstanding of the process of marketing, and it was interesting because I went back and this afternoon I reread the portions of the books where Tara and Hunter were featured, and we're kind of on the same page. I'm going to guess, because one of the things that I find is that they just tend to start in the wrong place. Tara talked about the idea of developing strategy, and I think Hunter sort of said the same thing. So you need to think it through before you start marketing. So what I see is, particularly from the branding perspective, is they'll jump into developing a logo, or they'll jump into developing a website or some other element of collateral or marketing, and they really haven't taken the time to figure out the basics of the process, and they start in the wrong place. And what they end up doing is they do it poorly, they do it superficially, and they have to end up going and sort of backtracking and figuring it out again.
I'm shaking my head because it's exactly what I did. Everyone's first comment, well, you need a good website. You have a logo yet or something? And yes, that's the first thing people run out to get, and then they rub their hands and say, well, okay, I got that out of the way now. I can move on to whatever. Yeah, incredibly true.
Bring on the clients.
Yeah.
Waiting for the phone to ring.
what does an entrepreneur who may or may not have even raised any money yet, let's just say they haven't. I mean, many are going to bootstrap this new venture of theirs. I mean, what is one to do in order to approach this in the right way without a budget of any significance? Certainly, I mean, I'm sure people are willing to put aside something to do this in the right way, but how does one get started?
Yeah, so I'll jump in, and Hunter, I know it looks like you have something to say about this too. Every business that starts is a bit different, right? Like where I like to start is always understanding the audience first, right? Who is that customer that you are trying to attract to come to buy your product, if it's a product, or pay for your services, and what are they looking for? What are their pain points? Where are they hanging out? What keeps them up at night? What are their interests? Who are they talking to? Are they influenced already by somebody? Are they reading certain online magazines or papers? Are they following people on Twitter? Like, what is that person doing? And that's actually, it seems pretty obvious, but it is one of the hardest things that you're going to ever do when it comes to marketing, because almost everybody goes into business thinking, everybody is my customer at the end of the day. Look at this world of billions of people. Anybody could come and hire your service or buy your product. And it's true. It could be, but you're not going to start there. You're going to have to start with somebody who, and the best people, when we describe who your best customer is, and these seem pretty straightforward, but they aren't for everybody, is, they have a need or desire for what you're selling. And they may not know it like right in front of them. Maybe they're looking for a solution and they don't know that you're that solution, but they're looking for it. They have a need or desire. And number two, and this seems self-evident as well, but it's not always in practice, is they are willing to, they can and are willing to pay for that product or service, because there's plenty of people that want everything for free out there.
Right.
And then number three, and this is the part that we find is really helpful, is they talk to others who are like them. That's the social part. So it's much easier to narrow your audience if you think, oh, this group is getting together on a regular basis and sharing information and talking to one another, because that helps you with your marketing a great deal. Word of mouth is still fundamentally, no matter what, the most powerful form of marketing out there. And word of mouth is organic, but if you plant, the word in the right places, that word of mouth, will grow with that little urging as well.
Right. Hunter, if I'd been fortunate, if I knew who you were 9 years ago, and I had no budget to speak of, but I had more savvy than I did 9 years ago, and I knew that I needed to talk to you, even if it was for an hour. Do you entertain those kinds of entrepreneurs, folks who want an hour's worth of your time? They're willing to pay for an hour's worth of your time, but that's all the budget they have. But they know that in 1 hour, they're going to get a 1 year course, in a short course in marketing by sitting down with you. Is that something that's realistic for a new entrepreneur to even entertain?
Yeah, look, absolutely. In fact, I usually give those hours away for free, because, and it's one of the reasons, like Wendy, that I became an author, is that I like to be able to. So when I write a book, I don't write a book with half the answer and then expect the person to come and buy the rest of me.
Right.
I put the whole answer in the book, because and I guess I wanted to start by sort of setting your mind at ease, is that everyone is exactly like you. I was exactly like you. When we first start our own business, we get excited and interested in the idea about the product or the service. So so if it was a coffee cup or a mobile phone or a lawn mowing business or whatever, we get interested in the mechanics or the technical side of what that idea is. So the product, if we're building it, or the service, if we're working out what we're going to do. And, you know, I was incredibly fortunate with my career because I came through sales and marketing and then went into an advertising agency, and then I started my own business. So I kind of had the perfect grounding in that I was taught about marketing before I was taught about business. And really the two things are the same thing. You could use the word business and the word marketing interchangeably when you consider that it's all about trying to deliver something of value to someone who wants to pay for it. So the big gap, and I suppose I could use some stats if you like, and what you mentioned at the start that I've surveyed 10,000 business owners, which is probably the biggest survey ever done in Australia in terms of asking business owners what they run into.
Yeah.
And only 20% of those business owners in that study had either a business plan or a marketing plan. So that means that 80% of businesses are running off what we'd like to call assumptions. In other words, they assume the value, they assume the market, they assume all of those things. And the problem with that is because it means that your message going out is based on what you think, not what the market or the customer thinks. So I'm with Tara on this concept of understanding the customer, understanding the market, understanding the competition, and also understanding yourself, how you fit into the ability to position yourself within that market, if you like.
Right.
And the research we've done just proves this time and time again. So the first thing I always say to our customers is spend some time understanding your market and customer. The other thing I tell them not to do is not listen to Dr. Google or Dr. Facebook or anything, because as we all know, and I'm sure all the people that are sitting in on the meeting today know that the first place most people go to get an answer to a question these days is not their friend or not an expert. They go to Google. And of course, Google and Facebook and all of these wonderful resources that we have available are conflicted advice, because if you ask Google whether you should advertise on Google about your business, what's their answer going to be? It's going to be yes. If you ask whether you should advertise on Facebook, Facebook will give you all the answers of that, yes, that's the correct thing. But the only person you should ever trust in terms of what you should do with your marketing is the customer, because they're the one that's going to they're the one that's going to pay you money for your product or service, whether it's $30 to mow the lawn or $6,000 for a beautiful violin if they want you to make a violin for them, or whatever it happens to be that you are passionate about as a business owner or entrepreneur. You have to find someone who will pay an amount of money that's enough for that product or service for you to make an income out of. In other words, a profit, which then becomes your wage or salary. So I don't want you to feel bad, Paul, because everyone's in the same boat. It's not a discipline that we learn. There's no, up until recently with books like Wendy's, there's been no business school for mature entrepreneurs. There's no place you can go. And frankly, most of the universities and TAFEs are not the right place for a mature age student, because they're trying to teach you theory about business or theory about marketing, and really it's down in the trenches. Go and ask the customers. That's where I start. That's where I started with my latest business. I spoke to 350 mature age people who wanted to start a business. So that was how I found out what they needed. Yeah.
Excellent. I don't know, Hunter, whether you saw or any of you saw that the post I put on LinkedIn earlier this week. There's an organization, a small business organization in Halifax that gave me a totally amazing review on the book, and that they're going to be using it in the programming.
Oh, rock and roll.
Which is, I was just, that's what this is all about, and somebody is getting it. So that is just great, you know. So now if I can just get it everywhere. I'm going to beat you in sales, Hunter. How's that?
We're all in the same boat trying to help each other, mate. So
yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tara, we had some notes here. I'm I believe Wendy is the author of these, but you may have helped prepare, because I think they were designed to sort of coax out of you what it is that you do so well, and what is meant by content marketing, which and how do you begin with content marketing, and how do you measure the results of your content marketing? So would you like to kind of take those all together and?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I mean, first of all, earlier on you introduced yourself and you said you hate sales. I hate sales too.
No, I said I was a dreadful salesperson.
Oh, you're a dreadful salesperson.
No, I love sales because
okay.
No, sales comes right before invoicing now, so I love sales.
Oh, we all love that part. But the actual going out and like, if you think back pre-internet and pre all the ways in which we're connected today, like there was, even though sales and marketing has been split apart, a lot of marketing was picking up the phone and calling people, right? Back in, it's calling, it's networking, getting to know people, right? And for a lot of people, the thought of doing that, especially I think, maybe when I was like, in my 20s, hot shot, like confident, I can face the world and do anything, it's fine. But like, as I got older and, I feel like there's this paradox that happens. You know more, but you feel like you know less, right? Because the more you know. Anyway, so the whole picking up the phone, calling someone, or even just today, like reaching out to people, people are busy. They're inundated with ads and inbound calls and stuff. And what content does is, and how it functions really well, is it appears on the path of the person who is seeking out something. That when they have a job to be done and they're looking for a solution to whatever, whether it's a product, like I'm looking for a new cell phone, or I am looking for marketing services, or I'm looking for consulting on some level, they're gonna go to Dr. Google, as to put it before, and they're gonna type in usually a phrase, and one of and then that phrase will bring up results of websites that answer their questions. Well, Dr. Google, back to Dr. Google again, puts at the top of the results the articles that are helpful first and foremost. Google doesn't tend to put websites and up at the top. They tend to put articles, and fresh articles as well. So if you, back to understanding your audience, if you know what they're looking for, if you know what their jobs to be done are, you know what they're searching for, and you can understand what they're typing maybe a little bit into that Google, into Dr. Google, what you can do is you can create articles on your website, or posts even on social media, even on LinkedIn posts that reflect their language back to them. So that's content. Content is really like getting in the way on your in the path of your customer's journey. So when your customer is looking for you, you're going to be more likely to be found if you're producing articles and posts that are useful for them along that journey. That's what content is. And it's what I love about it is you don't have to pick up the phone. You don't have to send a cold email or anything to somebody. You just are there when they need you. Right. And that is a really great step towards making a sale. And one of my favorite stories is a personal one where I was signing a lease to my office, or I was going to sign a lease. We just negotiated the price and stuff. And my realtor said, okay, I'll introduce you to a lawyer. And I was like, I don't need a lawyer for a lease. I've signed all sorts of leases all my life. And he's like, oh, okay, well. So I was like, what did I do? I went to Google. Do I need a lawyer for my lease, to sign my commercial lease? And the first article that came up was a LinkedIn article that the title of it said, do you need a lawyer for your commercial lease? The exact title of what I typed into the search engine. And so, of course, I clicked on it, read the article. The article was great. It, basically said, you could do it on your own. Here are some considerations. It was super helpful. And then my lawyer sent me over, or my realtor sent me over the lease, and it was 78 pages. And I was like, oh my God, I need a lawyer for this lease.
Yeah.
And guess where I went back? To that article. The woman who wrote the article was a real estate lawyer. And I contacted her and I hired her on the spot. That's content marketing. She didn't have to cold call around to all the people that, could potentially be signing a lease in the next little while. She wrote a really great article and then sat back and waited for people like me to find it and then potentially hire her. So that's that. I mean, that's content marketing in a nutshell. And a lot of people will produce, try to think about it with like clickbait or like 10 things you didn't know about owls or whatever, but it really is about that. I sound like a broken record now. Understanding your audience and your customer and what they're looking for, and then reflecting that back to them in the content that you're putting out online.
Well, I am happy to confirm everything you've said, because that's been my experience to a T, actually, because as Stephen made mention of earlier, the first thing we did was create a kind of sad little website, and then we got a logo, and then we thought we were open for business, and somebody wisely said, well, ours is a business to business venture. Well, you're going to have to drive people to your website. And, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I'm glad I almost expected that they meant I had to go pick them up and drive them to my website. I was just a little bit more savvy than that. And I was really, really fortunate because just in terms of timing, I saw a seminar on search engine optimization, and I went to it, and the experts were there to drive business, to their consulting firm. And, I said, listen, I'm just starting out. I don't have a budget. Could you take some pity on me and just give me, 5 minutes of advice? And he said, sure, I'm, happy to. And he gave me a little short bullet list of things I absolutely needed to do. And he was just so much in command of his material and content. And I really embraced what he said, and I ran with it, and I've been running with it ever since I started the business. Mm-hmm. And he was so right. And I am happy to tell you that sitting here today, I've never paid for Google search results. I mean, never paid for advertised results. But by doing all the things that he suggested, we have driven business to our website to the point where, for someone who doesn't like to do sales, we don't have to do sales anymore. Our virtual phone rings every day, multiple times a day. And there's some big names on the other end of that phone line. I'm delighted to say it's not just, somebody who wants to buy, 5 cupcake holders that are compostable. We've gotten business from Kimberly Clark and Electrolux and other companies who just go online, just like the rest of us. They look for Dr. Google also. And it's worked like a charm. Yeah. And we're just, as you said, we're just there on their path, and there we are. And and we're way up. I mean, I know I go back every once in a while and just see where we
Google yourself.
Everybody does that.
It's all right. We all
we
do.
were before Wikipedia. The last time I looked, we came before Wikipedia.
Amazing.
Woo.
So I can't believe it, but it's been the single best thing for our business.
Well,
Paul?
there's an expression that I often use with some of our clients, and it's good marketing should make selling easier.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, by the time they find you, Paul, they're probably already going, I should be talking to these people. So as opposed to going out and chasing people. So the fact that you've done it organically is good.
It's been
Well,
fantastic.
Paul, say a little bit. You didn't say much about you didn't say anything about what you're doing, what your company's about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
I just
and it's,
expect
yeah,
everyone-
it's really, really a neat business.
We turn waste, this is paper waste and agricultural waste, anything that has a cellulosic fiber content, we turn waste into packaging, consumer packaging. It's called molded fiber or molded pulp technology, and you're all familiar with it. It's the same technology used to create egg cartons. I mean, we like to think our packaging's a little more sophisticated looking and certainly more expensive than an egg carton, but that's the technology. And technology's been around for decades. It continues to improve, but and we sure have enough waste. Waste is not a problem.
Yeah.
We use anything fibrous, bamboo, sugarcane, rice, anything after it's been harvested or refined, whatever waste is left over. If it's a good fiber, we can use it to make packaging. So, and we have 6 partners, manufacturing partners around the world, who, this is what they do. They create, they don't create packaging, but they create manufacturing for projects like this. So we do the designing part of it and manage the project, and these other folks do the actual production, and it's worked out fine. It's slow going. All the P&Gs and L'Oreals of the world are very slow to make changes, no matter what they say in their commercials, or they are very, very slow to embrace a better environment for all of us, because it's not always what they believe perfect for their bottom line. But the truth is, it is better for their bottom line, but they don't often look at the bigger picture. They look at my package versus their package, and the difference is 2 cents, so we can't go there. But they have to embrace a larger picture. The savvier companies do get it, and it keeps getting better. So I'm very encouraged about the forecast. But it's been tough going, but exciting, and it beats any job I ever had. I will tell you, and I've had good jobs, but it being your own, building something from a seed and watching it grow and getting good feedback that that you're doing something worthwhile. Nothing I ever did as an employed engineer, nothing really comes remotely close to that. So I'm a poster child for senior entrepreneurism.
Yes, you are.
Well, maybe I can add something to that, and it also speaks to what Tara said about this, about the content marketing and everything. Is that the first thing I want to take up too is that if anyone online is looking to start a business and thinking about it, that what you just spoke about is an incredibly important part. This idea of having a passion for what you're doing. So yes, you want something that's going to make some money, but if you can also align that with something that you love. I have an environmental science background, so my entire marketing, the other business that I have, is aligned to helping sustainable product businesses. So we have a client who's replaced recycled glass for cement in bricks in Australia, for example. And so they're starting to build momentum as a niche product in bricks because it's more environmentally friendly, for example. So if anyone's out there, look at the passions in your life and see how you can also align the idea to that, because the passion will get you through the tough times of starting a business. It's actually not easy to be an entrepreneur because you run into lots more stuff than you might have as a technical expert and employee. Prior to that, you might have had very deep knowledge in one area. As a business owner, you have to be a generalist. You have to understand strategy, marketing, sales, quality, pricing, all these things, and it might feel like it, blow your head up because the passion bit. If you have a really crap day where everything's gone wrong, and you're passionate about it, you'll get up the next morning and have another crack at it, which is really important. The other thing I wanted to, I suppose, add to what Tara said, which is why it works. Why content marketing works is because you're aligning what somebody's looking for with what you have. And that is why you research your audience beforehand. You're trying to find out needs and wants. The purpose of knowing that is to know then what you communicate in the content marketing, because every product and service in the world has a core set of needs and wants. So anyone that's looking for anything has some reason why they're looking for it, whether it's for compostable packaging or whether it's for organic fruit and vegetables or whether it's for, skincare. It doesn't matter. Every single market in the world has a set of needs, and what you're looking for is a group of customers that most matches their needs, most match what you've got to offer. Right. And that's where the magic happens but unless you know that, all your content marketing is going to communicate the wrong messages, and the wrong messages sent out into this sea of rubbish that we all receive 5,000 or 10,000 messages a day. It won't get through. It just won't get through. It'll be rejected from the prefrontal lobe, if you think about the brain. Just won't even get the message. It just hits there and bounces off. But if it aligns what's sitting in the person's mind as to what they need, it gets into the decision-making matrix of the brain. That's the psychology lesson. But you're trying to look for alignment. That's what you're trying. That's why you survey it. It's why you spend all this time going and talking to people who might buy your product, because you're looking for those that go, oh, compostable packaging. Paul, please tell me about that. Now you've got their interest.
Right.
I think one of the other things that's kind of interesting is these days, with say from 20 years ago, is that it's really easy for people to do things.
Yeah.
And I had a perfect example of a small company we work with here, a little financial services company. They brought in a new sales guy, and within a week, he sends me this video he had produced and voiced about their product. And I said to him, it's pretty well done for the tools you had. How are you going to get people to watch it? And there was dead silence.
Yeah.
And when I talked to him today, I mean, he was a little annoyed initially. I said, you know what you should do? This is where all your business is coming from. They get a lot of referral business because of what they do. I said, you need to find other companies in North America that are either competitors or in the same sector that referral partner is. So maybe don't produce another video, because I can almost predict that very few people are going to watch it unless you make that a focus of what you do. Put some thinking into who are the people that need to watch this video, and how do I get them to watch it? And, is the video. So I guess that's a long way of saying there are a lot of free tools out there where people can design their own logos and build their own websites and produce their own content. If nobody sees it, or if the wrong people see it, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Unless they notice, there's an old ad saying that if people don't see your ad, everything else is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. They've got to see it. So that's part of it, and the right people have to see it.
Yeah.
And what about maybe even one step before that, about just creating their own, even before they put pencil to paper and create a visual logo or website, just their name alone, just creating that's going to be their brand. I mean, they're henceforth going to be known as Pulpworks or Joe's Sandwiches.
Yeah.
What can you say about that? Seems like almost like job number 0, not even job number 1. It's like being able to aptly identify what you're doing, so that I know that our name, I mean, I think we're fortunate we we picked a name we liked. It seems to address what we're doing, which, you know, people used to say is important.
Yeah.
But it actually feels like it speaks to what we're doing, and we like having that name and being able to identify ourselves by that. And so I feel really fortunate in that regard, but it feels like that's something you should do right from the get-go. Is that fair to say, Stephen? Or can that
you can. I mean, you've landed on a name that seems to work for you. I think you're in a niche where that probably does work. And I think a lot of people, what I find is a lot of people want to jump into the name and the logo and the fun creative stuff without really understanding who their audiences are. And again, I'm sounding, to quote Tara, I'm maybe sounding like a broken record, but you know, before you get into those naming and logo, I think you have to really understand who are you talking to and what do you want to say to them. And there's another saying that we use with customers and even charities we work with: no business ever went wrong by putting their customers at the center of all their thinking. So what we say with people is, you know, sure, come up with some names, but to be safe, you know, you may want to get a group of people to represent who your target audience is and go, does this represent the type of business we'd want to do business with? So I think that's part of it. And we're doing this for a client right now. Is, you know, there's kind of general approaches to how you can name a company or a service. So we're starting with that, but we're going, who are we marketing to? Who is this brand going to resonate with, or who should it resonate with properly? So, you know, I'd say put the homework in ahead of time.
Right.
And it's interesting. You said earlier, Paul, you spent sort of a couple of years floundering. But I bet a lot of the stuff that you experienced in that 2 years may have contributed to where you ended up landing in terms of your business.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
No, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah. It was time well spent. It wasn't just spinning my wheels. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Naming is one of, well, I just want to say, like, naming is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. And I would also, like that whole idea of knowing your audience, but also, and this is, you would probably, both you and Hunter would probably agree with me here, is that passion, the personality of you and what you uniquely bring to the table should also be reflected in naming. So that's like there's an extra complexity, but I find that's where you know, when we came up with Flywheel, for instance, just like not to push what we're doing, but like, it's just like, we talk about creating this marketing flywheel with, you know, content all the time. And, you know, there was somebody who I was hanging out with who was like, oh, remember the 90s when everything was, you know, pH, like baby fat and superfly and all this stuff. And I was like, that's the name of my company, because it came from where we were at.
Yeah.
It was something that our audience could understand too, and it became unique. And then there's like a whole bunch of extra pieces, I think, with naming, which is like back to Google, like how findable are you going to be from day one? We were really fortunate. There was 0 mentions of Flywheel with a PH.
Oh, wow.
And so if, like, there's an argument for and against naming yourself something that has like a misspelling like that. But you can see a lot of internet companies. Google itself is a misspelling of Google, right?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of the company Clout. It's spelled Klout. It was like an internet company a few years ago. Well, I forgot how to spell the original. Like at one point, I was spelling Clout with a K.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, having a bit of a clever twist, and, you know, not to go against the very serious research that goes into naming, but naming could also be a lot of fun and reflect your personality.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I've always found difficult in trying to name businesses, is to make it fun. Like, I'm looking at Hunter, Silver and Wise. Like,
Oh, good. I was just thinking his name is so good. Yeah.
Yeah, he stole it from me, but I want it back, Hunter. I'm only kidding. But, you know, it's always difficult, right? I mean, here, it's just, I always want something that goes with my personality, which is kind of out there and whatnot. And I'm, you know, I never think that what I come up with is quite right, but
yeah, I think
it
it's
is what it is.
Yeah, I think there's Tara's hit the nail on the head. It can be a big process, which can get even more complicated if you have big intentions. So if you want to be a global business, so if somebody out there's thinking they want to be all over the world, then you've got cultural considerations. And there's been some horrific examples of big businesses launching, like car companies launching names of cars into South America, which were, you know, rejected, and they didn't know why it wasn't selling because they found out that this word meant something that was just terribly wrong.
No go, yeah.
And so you've got to come back to scope as well. So if you're planning to start a business that's just going to service your local suburb or even the street that you live on, or whatever, well, okay, then the name could probably just be your name, or it could be the suburb with a name like, you know, Brighton Accounting or whatever. If you want to go global, or you've got some other reason why you need a name that, I mean, Flywheel is just awesome because it just speaks to what you're doing. Yep. But it could also be symbolic. The name and the brand are only just one, the logo, I mean, are only just one part of what you represent. And at the end of the day, after a period of time, people are going to start they attach a whole lot of emotional and technical things to that thing, and then that's why they do business with you as a result. So it's really only one component. So sometimes it can mean nothing. You could just come up with any name and it'll work, and sometimes it requires something very specific that also communicates what you do.
Yeah.
We take some of our clients through a process, and it's kind of interesting because quite often, especially in entrepreneurial or small companies, the brand or the name reflects the founders or the partners. And we work with larger companies sometimes in a rebrand or examination of their brand. And we take them through this interesting process we have what we call the brand personality grid. So we give it to people independently and say, don't compare notes. So it's things like, you know, if you were to describe your brand or your company, would it be conservative or liberal? Would it be young or old? Would it be sort of staid or flashy? And it's interesting to go through that. And I'm not sure it's only applicable to larger companies, is to think about, you know, how is your brand going to be, or how's the name going to be when it gets out there? And can you consistently reinforce that? So if you've got a really higher name, then is your marketing going to support that? Is your messaging going to support that? Is your content going to support that? So it's worth thinking about that sort of perspective when you're thinking about naming or branding or even marketing in general. Because what you don't want to do is set up an expectation of this is a really flashy out there company, and then when you deal with them, you go, they're kind of anything but. Right?
And you don't. There's certain industries where people don't want flashy and bright and whatever. It's why a lot of banks and financial companies have very conservative logos with color blue and all this sort of thing. There's all these triggers that lead to that. So if you're a conservative business where you're dealing with risk in a business to business thing, then people don't want you to be, don't be doing the showy stuff. I just need you to be very stable and, you know, just careful, and the tone of voice has to come out with that. Whereas if you're, you know, at the edge of tech and artificial intelligence, well, maybe it can be woohoo, you know, we're out there and we're not wearing the ties and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I barely ever wear a tie anymore, but I have financial services,
for us.
insurance clients and things like that. And if I don't go to a meeting with a tie on, I'm seen as some kind of kook. What are you doing?
Radical.
I had a great thing said to me by we've worked a lot in healthcare, and a number of years ago, I was talking to a CEO of a fairly large hospital in Ottawa, and we were talking about technology and, you know, leading edge and all that sort of stuff. And he was being pressed by people from the technology community in Ottawa to be more leading edge. And he said, you got to understand, in healthcare, leading edge, you got to be risk averse, right? If one of these tech companies makes a mistake, a computer crashes or a system goes down, we make a mistake, we kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went, so that's, to me, that's all about how you have to look at things.
Sure. I was on a call just a few days ago and there was a woman participating on the call, a very, as you said, Hunter, I mean, if she could wear a tie, she would have been wearing a tie. She was just very buttoned down and, you know, a little on the stuffy side. And of course, we were all working from home because of COVID. And so help me, if you've ever seen that commercial, I forget what it's for, an insurance company or something, but there's a very straight arrow guy talking to his boss and a group in a meeting room, and his kids are like sticking things on his forehead and, you know, shooting arrows into him. So help me, that's what happened to her. She had young children. One of them slapped a picture on her forehead. She was absolutely mortified. I mean, she's the last person in the world who could handle something like that. And we had to tell her that, you know, hey, we're all in the same boat.
It's okay. It's okay.
It might make her even more likable.
Absolutely.
The human side.
One of the fellows said, "Don't feel bad, my dog just peed on my leg." So.
That's great.
Reality bites.
Wendy received an inquiry that I thought was pretty interesting, and I thought, you know, to toss it up there for everybody to consider. And it probably is representative of a lot of folks out there, seniors or otherwise. And I won't read the entire premise, but it's basically someone who's struggling with taking an offline business that's been successful to an online business because of, you know, just the way the world goes round these days. And, you know, for the participants who have been listening to this, they should know that most of what's been said here, aside from some wacky anecdotes or whatever, most of what's been said here today is in Wendy's book. And forgive me, Wendy, if I missed it, but I don't know that anyone's really addressed this issue of going from offline to online, and it's probably worth discussing for a few moments, because I have a feeling that there's a lot of folks making that shift and wondering, you know, how do I pull this off? You know, this is like creating a whole new business.
Well, I'm just going to say something about that, because it's very true. I mean, I am old school. I love meeting face to face with people. I absolutely love it. I couldn't do a book launch. Like, I wanted to get out and I wanted to be taking it to people and giving it to people and talking to them, because, you know, the one thing that I want is them to hear my passion, because I am really passionate about this book. And then all of a sudden, well, guess what? I can't do it. So I have had to switch everything online. And I mean, yes, I've always been online, but not to the extent that I am now. And so it is a challenge. And a lot of people are going to be feeling this. Now the one thing I think that, and you marketing experts can differ with me, and please do. But, you know, it will be, if somebody is listening to what we're talking about or has read my book, then, and going during this time, then they're going to know that they need to do it online right away. And so I think this is a really important topic to bring up and talk and discuss.
One of the things that I was really impressed with you, just from the beginning, Wendy, was how experimental you were being with just because your original concept, wasn't it like you were going to create, you know, these more of these video stories, like, forget paper. You were like Apple. You were like way ahead of your, you know, the whole crowd. But that's great, right? Like that for this way got you really prepared for what was coming down the pipe.
I guess. I know it was going to be a video book, and everybody was really good in it except for me. So that's why I switched. That's what I kept saying. I would just. No, but I was saying that, like, I always just go in all the time, too close to the camera and things like that. So
Part of the charm. Part of the charm. It's
I
great.
guess. Well, you know what? I still have the videos. I can
Yeah.
always do that.
But that's part of the. I think that is part of you know, the when people say digital transformation or going online, like all that stuff. It's less about the technology and it's more about like the culture and the willingness to do it, right? It's the willingness to be experimental and, you know, start going on and don't go on with like, okay, this has to be perfect for my business or your book has to be perfect.
Yep.
Make it an experiment. That's what's so wonderful about the digital world, right?
Yeah.
It's not like putting an ad in a paper and going, oh no, I have a typo in it. It's like, it's out. It's gone, right? A book, you know, you have problems in it. You can't go and edit it. The web, you can edit things. That's and everything is like incremental. So, you know, heck, get on TikTok, and experiment with it, right? Like, try out these mediums and don't do it thinking, oh, I need to go viral or whatever. But that's where you really start with this stuff is like, oh, this is interesting. Let me like play around with it. And you'll find your medium, you'll find like where you're going to connect with your audience. You'll find your way into that and get more comfortable.
I think to sort of play on that a little bit is, and this plays to what we just said about Wendy, is that I was talking to a lady I've known for probably 20 years today, and she's taken on sort of the marketing and sales for a traditional manufacturing company. And it occurred to me after talking to her, and we were talking about LinkedIn and social media, she was terrified of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I've known you for 20 years. You don't do anything dumb. You know, so what if there's a typo or you make a mistake or you don't understand how to do something? Just try stuff, because that is truly one of the wonderful things about the digital environment is you can try stuff. And what you're going to discover is some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. Pay attention to the things that work. And, but don't be afraid to try stuff. There's lots of stuff out there. I think the other thing is to take a look at, to go back to the original question that you brought up, Paul, is, if you've been successful in the offline environment, take the time to think about why you've been successful. Is it the service you provide? Is it the personality? Is it other elements of your offline business that have made you a success? And then think about, how can I take that and translate it into the online environment? And I think not enough people can really think about that. But what I find with a lot of things is that people create, and this happens to a business or a business person of any age, is they create an online presence, and then there's a disconnect between their online presence and their offline presence.
Yes.
So you're just going in the other direction. You've built a business offline, you're taking it online. And the thing is not to jump into everything at the same time. Again, to harken back to this lady I was talking to today, I said, start with LinkedIn, because you're a B2B marketer. That's what you do. Because people were telling you, get on TikTok. TikTok is probably great for some people. It's not great for everyone. So start with LinkedIn, get comfortable with that. Don't think you have to be everywhere at the same time. And just think about how you're going to, and talk to some of your customers maybe. What is it offline that people like about your business, and how can you easily translate that into an online presence?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? This I think it's one of the masterstroke of PR. These words, online and offline. It makes the real world sound like it's to the online world. One of the things I'd like to add to that, and this is really important, is to think of the idea that you are still speaking to human beings. Technology is only a conduit. So I use that term H2H, so human to human. And it's just about talking with as many of your customers as possible to find out which part of the business can be conducted online or in the virtual world. How do they communicate? What are their behaviours and attitudes to your product and service on the web or on LinkedIn or on Facebook? So you're just understanding how the humans use the technology rather than the other way around, which is that the technology is the god and we're all sort of, prostrating ourselves at the pyramid of technology. That's what scares people, I think, is that it's some mysterious world filled with ones and zeros. It's not. It's just a
Mhm.
tool another human being at the other end of the phone line or the other end of the email is using. And if you can do that, then you can transition some of your business online. And for some businesses, it might be all. So, you know, if you're selling a professional service like an online course, the entire transaction can be online. The purchase, the research, the purchase, the service, the surveys, everything else that happens in the entire thing. But if you're selling cups of coffee at a local cafe, well, maybe the only thing that's online is the reviews. So people say it's a great cup of coffee, you have to go to this cafe. People are still going to actually turn up. You know, they can't press a button and 3D print their cup of coffee from the...
Oh, yeah, really?
Not yet.
So it's, if you mow lawns for a living, you're not going to be able to do that virtually. You know, it's really important to understand that. So don't listen to the so-called experts saying you have to be online, because it might not be the thing for your business. But if some of the activities can be taken online, like the invoicing or the communication or the reviews or whatever, then great. Just one, and I love your comment on that, Stephen. It's just one thing at a time. Just pick, how can I transition this one thing? So instead of having my meetings face-to-face, well, because of coronavirus, I have to have it on Zoom. Okay, great. The benefit is I don't have to wear a mask while I'm talking to people.
Yay!
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
I had an interesting experience this week. I'll keep it short, but I decided, so I hadn't had my hair cut since March. And I was starting to look a bit like the Jeff Bridges style of hair. And I decided I was going to get my hair cut. So my sister-in-law told me about this new salon nearby. And I checked them out. Great online presence. She said, make sure you ask for this guy. So I go in, I do everything online. I love it. I'm on my way. I get my text reminder. I get my email reminders. I show up at my appointment time. I walk in and they go, he's not here. I went,
oh, no.
So they delivered a great experience online, but when I got there, I was pissed off. So it works the other way too.
Right. It does. Totally. Yeah. But don't be scared of it. Just have a crack and, you know, talk with your customers and ask them how they use the technology, because they're the ones that are going to, again, they're the best advisors that you're ever going to have. It's not the marketing expert or the tech expert or the LinkedIn expert. It's the customer. Find out what they need.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on that point, did they get back to you and apologize or anything, Stephen? Nothing. Yeah.
Nope. It was like it didn't matter to them. And I went, okay. Well, you won't see me again.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to ask you that. No way.
Nope.
So I learned how to cut my own hair and color it online during COVID-19. So there you go. You can do it too, and you can say to them, I can deliver my own experience.
I've been cutting mine too, Tara. But
there you
go. Did you Google that, Tara? How do I color and cut my hair?
I sure did. YouTube is a wealth of videos on such subjects.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
The only thing is the back isn't quite I think it should be.
Nobody sees that.
Only people see on the front. Yeah,
that's right.
That's the good thing about being online. Nobody sees behind you, right? Yeah.
You know, it's a crazy world we live in.
I know. Yeah. All right, I think we're getting a little off topic sometimes. We're having fun. This is great. Thank you.
Actually, I really love Larry's question. I'm just looking at it. It kind of went to what we were saying about, like, when he was asking about vision boards.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, that kind of ties back to what we were saying before. So, like, whether anybody create them. I love vision boards. I don't necessarily use stock photos of people because I feel like, especially online, there's enough real people that you can go, you know, maybe print out some real photos of people from Facebook. I mean, it's a little creepy, but that's all right. And Instagram, and like just make a collage of these real people and their interests and their lives. You know, and I've done that. I've made, instead of stock photos, used real people, and because people are putting, what I love about, you know, for all of the terrible things that people say and do on social media, there is still a lot of really amazing, like, valuable information about them. People are putting out in the world who they are, what their hopes and dreams are, what their, you know, like what their, you know, so if you start to understand your customers like that, and you can create this mood board, so say, you know, find people who would be your ideal customer, and really, like, read what they've been saying online on LinkedIn and all these places, and start to sort of see if you can find patterns between them. You can create like a real mood board of non-stock photo people and real people that can become that template. We did that for Flywheel. I had real people, you know, someday I might actually tell them, by the way, you're in my original, like, strategy deck. Sorry, I sold those pictures from Instagram of you, but, you know, like, where I, you know, we took the time to really understand them, and it was really helpful for understanding how to create the messaging and the language around how we were approaching them.
We take because we deal in such a tactile business. We'll take packaging. Not that anyone's interested in having us convert it, but we'll take some packaging that that we'd like to convert to a more sustainable version. Some kind of dreadful plastic package made by, you know, insert name here, and just kind of keep it out on the desk to look at and remind us that, you know, these are the kinds of things that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to turn that piece of crap into something environmentally friendly. And you'd be surprised at just having it stare you in the face every day. God forbid that company ever called us up. I think we'd probably fall out of our chairs, you know, but it's mostly aspirational, but it really gets you thinking about possibilities, and it is extremely helpful to have kind of a reminder of why you're in this business. Not the good stuff you've done, but the bad stuff that needs to be addressed. And it's kind of cool to have it right out on your desk. Actually, it really does. It does speak to some important things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
Wendy, any questions from the audience before we wrap things up?
Okay, I think that, Larry, we've answered yours. And I just know that Danielle has posted, I'm trying to find it here. She says she doesn't want to be mean, but she's glad I couldn't do a meeting in person, as she would not have been able to attend. And now she has access to all of these great panels that I'm doing. So thank you, Danielle. I think they're great. I do. I think there's so much information in the book. But this even adds more to it. You know, it's even more human, that, you know, that human online, that, you know, you're really talking to people that were part of the book. And so, you know, I think it's great doing these discussions. And, you know, sometimes there's people that are able to attend, and sometimes there are people that can't attend, but the replays are always going to be available. So, yeah. So I think we've covered everything.
One thing, Larry was kind enough to pose a few questions on the chat line, and I answered his first question, but I didn't notice his second question, so I hope I didn't confuse you, Larry. My response had to do with your first question, which was if you don't mind me sharing, was a troubling comment. That, you know, Larry's comment was like, we're living in dreadful times, and particularly in the U.S., the leadership that we have is well, certainly the leadership we have now is not up to the task. The leadership we have now, I wouldn't trust with walking my dog, but we are living in some dreadful times, and I guess what kind of keeps me feeling positive is the fact that you know, things will change in 4 months. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be probably looking you guys up to see if I have any spare rooms or in-law apartments that you want to rent or something. Yeah,
Come and visit us in Australia.
Yeah, our borders are closed, Paul, so you may want to go to Hunter.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot about you.
Yeah.
Come on down.
They are literally closed.
Mm-hmm.
Both directions.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey,
Wow.
One of the things I wanted to just briefly say on that is that, and it comes back to this passion point, is that, you know, clearly in what you do, you've become an opinion leader and a leader for people on the idea of being environmentally friendly. And Tara has become a leader on this idea of that everyone should be treated equally and given the same opportunity. And for all of the people that are online here thinking about starting businesses, is that you have the opportunity to, you're not just a business owner, you can become a leader of a tribe or a community where you ignite the passions of the individuals within your group. So your clients become part of your community. And whilst none of us, as much as we might like to, can influence larger scale things like, you know, who's running the country or the big organisations that are doing bad stuff, what we can do is control our own sphere of influence. And
Right.
whatever business you start, you will end up controlling a sphere of influence, which includes your customers, and it includes the community you operate in as well, which I think is also really important. So my view on this is we just pick what we can control and try and inspire and help the communities we serve, because that's what we do, business owners. Of course, we take profit out of our business, but we've got to put back something that is at least in exchange with what we take out as business owners. And to what you're doing, Paul, you're running a business, but you're putting back in a better environment, and Tara's putting back in a more equal environment, and that's what we're here to do. So I just want to encourage everyone that's sitting in on the panel to think about that in the context of whatever business that you're going to start, because
Sure.
the businesses of the future are businesses that have a purpose and are businesses that are sustainable, and sustainable in every sense of the word, environmentally, community, etc., etc. It can't be just about the product, the service, and the profit, because otherwise it's just not going to happen.
I agree. Those days are over, and although many I think will go kicking and screaming into the future, those days are over, and most of us are probably feeling very good about that. High time, as they say.
Well, I think people are more cognizant of that, and I certainly any company we work with, we always ask them the question, how do you think you can make a difference? Because it's if you don't make a profit, you don't have a business. That's a given. But are there other ways that you can have an impact? Whether, like, pick a cause. There's lots of causes that are thumbs that bubble to the surface for all the right reasons. And there's been somewhere when we're advising clients, it's do you have a passion for this? Can you make a difference? Can you do something tangible and measurable to make a difference in whatever the cause is, and to make sure you're walking the talk when you do it. That's one of the criteria we look at when we're working with clients is, are they giving lip service to an issue, or they're really, committed to doing it? And we've had, clients talk to us that say, yeah, obviously you should back something like Black Lives Matter. But then it goes beyond that. Well, how can we make a difference beyond, expressing our interest in this or supporting what this cause is? So something tangible and measurable. And, I think consumers, that's one of the things about consumers today that I like, is that they tend to look at that, and they'll hold companies to task that sort of give it a superficial treatment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Much more. I remember when we started, the only folks using the phrase greenwashing were us, because we noticed it. So, in the marketplace, and, and a few of the environmental groups that we're so passionate about. Now it's almost slipped into the vernacular.
Yes.
I've heard people use the expression greenwashing, who I never expect that to come out of their mouth. Oh, that's just greenwashing. And it sounds so good when you hear somebody, you know, that you'd least expect to use it, you know, so familiar with what it is and able to notice it too. People are much more savvy now. They don't seem to fall for the same crap that, you know, used to be peddled years ago.
Right.
And I think COVID-19 has also, and just everything that's happened in 2020 has brought a lot of this to the surface in general. And there's been a lot of data that's come out more recently that more and more people are doing their research or taking their time to make sure that they're spending their money in a way that matters, and they're putting their money where their ethics are. And so, you know, it's no longer just a nice thing to do. It's pretty essential for your business. And I mean, that makes me feel good because, you know, I read your comments too, and my heart sank because I thought, you know, a lot of people, they feel like, oh God, like what is it all for? I've gone through that myself. Just, you know, and I'm Canadian, just like looking at what's happening, you know, to our wonderful neighbors to the south. And I just keep coming back to, there is a lot of great movement that's happening. And if we just, as business owners, focus on that and see what we can do to double down on making sure that momentum does not slow, that's a place of hope. That's a place that I want to be.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. A good way to end the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure and privilege to chat with you guys.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Paul. Thanks, Wendy,
Thank you
for
ever
bringing us
so
together.
much.